Are you over explaining or over describing in your memoir scenes? I love description. I love painting pictures for readers, but it has to have a purpose. It has to have a reason behind it. You don't necessarily go and just describe everything that you saw back then. For example, in this paragraph that I have up on the screen, it's a story from an author writing about their childhood, a school scene. And it goes, our homeroom teacher, Mr. Hanna, stepped out for a second. He is the definition of a teacher. His hair parted. He always carried some sort of pen in his ear, only wore cords, and was always acting like he had authority. We were a little scared of him, which is why no one risked stepping out of line in front of him. But when he left, different story. I was with a group of my friends. We were in a line of 4 in the middle row of the class. There was Corey to my right, a chubby kid who always wore basketball shoes and hats. He must have had a collection of about 50 hats. But never would you see him without one, even our graduation night. To my left was Jason, the jock of elementary school. He was the guy who played rep hockey, skied, played soccer, mountain bike, and track. To the left of him was Alex, the class clown, short, skinny, and wore glasses the size of his head. So some interesting detail here, right? I mean, we're learning all about these characters. But in a sense, when you read through that paragraph, nothing has happened. So you're hoping that the reader will keep following you. Now, I was editing this, I was reading, so I had to read it. It was my job to read it. But you got to remember that readers don't have to read what you're writing. And they may not get through all of this backstory or description or detail about the relationships between people and how they look and so on. It turns out this story was actually pretty interesting after this. It got into, we see the teacher has left and these kids are going to do something bad in the classroom. As I can remember when our teachers would often leave the classroom for a bit, we would often come up with some schemes to have some fun in the classroom. And in this case, that's exactly what happens. But I wonder if this is a little too much. So just keep in mind that you don't have to necessarily explain everything. You don't have to say the chubby kid who always wore basketball shoes and hats and had a collection of 50 hats. Even he wore them even on graduation night. These little asides, these little extra details are probably not that important to the story. Just put in things that are important to the story. And if it doesn't need to be there, like if I could delete this, if I could just go like this, delete, and the rest of the actual story makes sense, and flows without any confusion, then that was unnecessary. We didn't need to have this big rundown of all the boys in the story. So just keep that in mind, that you want to put the detail in that's important, that matters, but avoid loading up on too much of this like backstory or genealogy of everybody in the story, or else you might lose the reader.